The future of Penn State wrestling is as bright as it's ever been.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
When I say the future is as bright as ever for Penn State wrestling, that includes both the collegiate team, the program, and then the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, and thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is why I am a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends, download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play, and help me welcome him back for almost a part two in this wrestling series to catch up with the voice of Penn State wrestling. That is Jeff Byers. He's also the morning show host, 8 to 10 a.m. every single weekday on Fox Sports 98.7 FM in State College. You can stream the show, stream the channel, the station, if you were out of the area, 987thefox.com. Jeff, you know this, of course, very well. We just talked about it recently, what Penn State has in terms of its collegiate lineup, but then you look at the U20 U.S. Open, you look at the Olympic trials, and Penn State, just the future of Penn State wrestling is so bright. We'll start with the youngsters, right? All the wrestlers that competed that are either current commits that are going to be here in just a matter of months, competing for a starting spot potentially. Mirola twins, right, for an example, and then guys like PJ Duke, Nate Desmond, who are still some time out, but will be here sooner before we know it. The U20, I mean that. To have four individual champions there out of the weight classes in the way that they did it. Luke Lilledahl, another name, named the outstanding wrestler, teched his way all through the tournament. I mean, out of all the names, Jeff, that were there, besides Luke Lilledahl, Conor Mirasola stood out to me the most. Were there any other guys that just said, I can't wait for them to be in the Penn State wrestling lineup?
Well, I mean, those two, obviously, I think Zack Ryder, PJ Duke, as you mentioned, is a year away, but man, he is special. I do think Lilledahl is just such a dynamic wrestler and is, that offensive oriented guy that Penn State loves. I mean, I guess any fan base would love, but it just feels like it's a natural fit with his style. I will tell you, Zach, as good as I thought Conor Mirasola was or is, the fact, and I don't know if folks have really sat down and appreciated what he did at the Olympic trials, but there were two matches that Aaron Brooks wrestled against David Taylor. Taylor had 0 takedowns in those two matches combined. Conor Mirasola took Aaron Brooks down. Nobody in college wrestling did that this season.
Nope.
David Taylor didn't do it. I mean, I get it was one takedown. Maybe there are people that'll chalk it up to, wow, it was a fluky thing. I'm telling you, fluky things don't happen to Aaron Brooks, not the way he's wrestling right now. That is, of all of the things we saw at the Olympic trials, that still might be the most astounding thing to me that I saw was Aaron Brooks giving up a takedown to a kid that is not yet enrolled in college. So, I think Mirasola, and not that I'm alone or unique in my thinking here, but I think that guy is college-made, ready to go, and look out. Just a ton of fun to watch. Really, really high-level motor, high-level wrestling IQ, and obviously just a terrific athlete. So, to your point earlier, there are guys that they have coming in that are like the afterthoughts that are going to be really good and maybe national champions, but they are at a point right now where I don't know, even me covering the program as closely as I do and being around it as much as I am, I'm just shaking my head in utter disbelief that one college team could be amassing this much talent. And it's been special all along here with Cael. I've joked about it before over the years. It's like they seem to get 2 to 3 generational talents every year in the lineup. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at this group that's coming in, and you combine that with the Levi Haynes and the Mitchell Messenbrinks and
Mm-hmm.
Braden Davis, and you go right on down the line, Tyler Kasak. And this is a lineup that may feature 7 or 8 generational talents, the guys
Yeah.
that you think come along once in a generation, and you're just going to have it up and down one single lineup here in the next couple of years.
And those were the champions. Joe Seeley finished as a runner-up. Josh Barr finished as a runner-up, and they finished second. Zach and Jeff might be alluding to the fact that on any given day anybody can beat anybody, but the fact that Penn State had such a presence, right? The only person not to place that was connected to Penn State at the U20 US Open, the Nationals here, was Braden Davis, and he went 3-2. So he had a winning record from the weekend. And maybe I'm mistaken here. I think Nate Desmond also might not have placed as well. So only those two wrestlers out of all the ones that competed over the weekend at the U20 Nationals did not place, and they still had 500 or better records from the weekend.
Yeah, and again, it just speaks to the obviously it speaks to the talent that is coming in, but I also think when you watch these guys, it speaks to the caliber of wrestler that Penn State is getting and seeking, and the caliber of person, right? It's that combination of guys that are going out and just trying to become the best they can be, wrestling aggressively, trying to score as many points as they can, and then shaking hands and putting the sport in perspective. And I just, for as special as this era has been under Cael Sanderson, I actually truly think the most special time of this Sanderson era is still to come. I think these next 5 years are going to be just absolutely spectacular and as much fun to watch as anything we've ever seen in college wrestling.
Now, of course, some of these wrestlers competed at the Olympic trials, right? Which is even crazier. And then they go to a national tournament in just a week's time. I do have some more additional thoughts about Lilledahl, Conor Mirasola, and then we'll go into the Olympic trials. That is all on the way coming up next year on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to bet on each and every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. That is right, $150. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. We saw the Timberwolves move on, the Nuggets advance, and you can bet on those game lines, those series lines right now on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Could Luke Lilledahl, Conor Mirasola end up being 4-time NCAA champions? Well, while it's not exactly easy to do that, it's definitely a possibility here. Lilledahl, just to put it into perspective, and Jeff, you, of course, seeing that and going, Vinny Kilkiri, right, gave Braden Davis some fits in the regular season. Bounced in and out of the lineup just because he ultimately redshirted, and Vinny Kilkiri won multi-state titles in Pennsylvania. So familiar just with this region as a whole, but he's now at Ohio State. Luke Lilledahl, who is a high school senior that will be a freshman at Penn State, and I think could slot in as the starter at 125, again, creating more traffic jams for the Penn State lineup here. But Lilledahl, when he is finally settled into the Penn State wrestling lineup, he can win now, and he can win 4 NCAA titles if everything, goes accordingly. But at the end of the day, Luke Lilledahl and Conor Mirasola are both capable of those kind of great things. at the very least, they are going to be 2-time, 3-time NCAA champions, because that is how they could come in. If there were open spots, like readily open spots, they could come in right away at 125 and 197 and compete with no issues on the whole collegiate level.
Yeah, it's, there's a lot of things that go into winning national titles, and some of it is health related. Just do you have the good fortune of being healthy and feeling all of that? So I
unless
think
you're Carter, you can wrestle through that.
Yeah, it's virtually impossible to predict 4-time national champions or anything like that. What I will say in both of those cases is those are guys that are ready to come in and compete with anybody anywhere right away. Now, again, whether or not you win all of those close matches or you win the ones when they count the most, who knows? I mean, Mitchell Messenbrink was certainly capable of winning the national title this year. Hats off to David Carr, wrestled a terrific match. Messenbrink was right there. If they wrestled again the next day, I could go the other way. So there are going to be, I don't think either of these guys or any of these, as great as I think Penn State wrestling is and this lineup is going to be, again, I don't think there's a given anywhere where, well, that guy's a national champion. You circle that. Again, a lot of guys that I like their chances, like them a lot, but there's always a lot of other great coaches, great wrestlers out there competing for the same thing. I think more, at least what I look at is, hey, is this guy going to be really competitive at the highest levels? And up and down the lineup, and certainly with Mirola and Lilledahl, yes, they will come in, they will be competitive right away. And how competitive and exactly where they fit, that stuff kind of sorts itself out throughout the season. But you've just seen enough of these guys, and they've wrestled enough other elite competition, both up, at the Olympic trials, but certainly in their age groups and everything, that you know what you have here. And I think with the enthusiasm and the passion that they bring, it just, barring injury, it's hard to see how they won't have success. What degree of success, again, we'll find out. That's the fun of watching these guys compete, but they're going to be successful at the next level.
And you don't, and I don't want to discredit, right? Conor's got a twin brother in Cole Mirasola who just finished second at this same tournament, right? He is also a top 20 overall prospect in this recruiting class. Again, Joe Seeley finished as a runner-up, right? I don't, and Zack Ryder, again, won. He also won as well. So it's not to say that these guys also won't be 2-time, 3-time NCAA champions, maybe 4-time, right? But I think, a red shirt might benefit them in certain, individually in certain cases here. But as far as Lilledahl and Conor Mirasola go, you don't have to guess because they've proven it, right? There isn't this speculation like, oh, well, when they get there, they have favorable traits that can make them really competitive and put them already in the top 4 of any weight class that they would slide into. Luke Lilledahl's already beating former NCAA champions. He is tech falling guys who are currently at the collegiate level in the likes of Vinny Kilkiri. And Conor Mirasola goes to the Olympic trials and takes down Aaron Brooks, which had not been done all NCAA season. So the resumes are there. They've already built the track record to say they can come in now and for the next 4 consecutive years will be in the title conversation at the very least, and honestly likely win 2, 3, maybe even 4.
Yeah, again, I think they'll at the very least be coming in and be very competitive with just about anybody anywhere. And I think the maturity that a lot of these guys have, and listen, we're talking obviously about the Penn State guys, but you start looking around the country. I mean, it is amazing to me the number of guys who look like they are polished veterans. And I mean, guys that are in their 20s type of polished veterans, 25, 26, that are in high school. And again, the caliber of wrestling, I think, in this country just keeps getting better and better. And I think we're going to see it with the Olympic Games this summer. I think the U.S. will have a very good haul coming out of Paris, and I think that's just going to continue to grow. And again, the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club obviously leading the charge here with 4 starters and the six-man starting lineup. But I think overall, again, in the United States, these kids are coming out of high school just with a maturity and a wrestling pedigree that it's hard, at least for a guy like me, to get my head around that's possible at the high school level. But this has been kind of the trend the last 10 years or so, where we've seen that change. I mean, it used to be there was a pretty significant transition for almost everybody going from high school to college. Now, it's still a transition. There's still a lot that these kids are having to deal with off of the mat in terms of, living away from home, being away from parents, classes, all of the things that come with it. So it's still a transition, but the wrestling part of it, man, these kids are by and large now coming in, that the elite kids that we're talking about, they're coming in and they're going to be competitive right out of the gate.
The future of Penn State wrestling from a collegiate standpoint is obviously very bright. And then there's what was done at the Olympic trials with 4 Nittany Lion Club wrestlers taking 4 of the 6 spots for the Olympic lineup. And still a couple guys have to wrestle in Istanbul to get there. Zane Rutherford, Spencer Lee. But Jeff, let's discuss some of your takeaways from the Bryce Jordan Center. You got to call the first day of those matches. We'll discuss that on the other side of this break. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You've already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff to tell you about in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You can get unique stickers that you can trade with a friend to complete albums for bigger prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis when you want to taunt your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting each and every day. It's not the same old game. It's constantly changing with tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like mass multipliers for everything you win and rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, get back in the game, and go download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Are you getting hyped for the NBA playoffs? I know I am. Picture yourself at a live NBA game with that playoff atmosphere. Well, those dreams can become a reality with Gametime as they make it happen as the NBA's authorized ticket marketplace. And get this, prices will actually drop on Gametime as the game approaches tip-off. Now, I've used the Gametime app for myself for Penn State games, baseball games, and more, and you can too for those playoff matchups and get some pretty sweet deals. You'll get last-minute ticket deals, but you don't have to second-guess yourself when you're buying the tickets. Gametime offers seat views so you know where you'll be sitting and what that point of view looks like. Gametime's got it all, plus they have the lowest price guarantee. With last-minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, and more, solid ticket coverage will give you that peace of mind with every purchase on Gametime. So are you ready to snag those playoff tickets? All you got to do is download the Gametime app, sign up, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create that account and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Out of the 6 Olympic spots, 4 of them belong to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. And that's not surprising, Jeff. That's the conclusion that you and I came to when we were previewing the Olympic trials, but there was so much action. The dust has finally settled. Jeff, your overall takeaways here, I mean, it's probably starts and ends with the fact that Aaron Brooks, with what he was able to do to come from behind against Zahid Valencia to beat the best pound-for-pound wrestler of the past 6-7 years in David Taylor at 22, 23 years old, Aaron Brooks is ready now. He doesn't have to wait another 4 years to display his talent.
Yeah, the depth on this U.S. team, I just think, is truly astounding. And yes, the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club leading the way. 8 of the 12 finalists were Nittany Lion Wrestling Club members. And as you said, 4 of the 6 starters now on Team USA for this Olympic year are from the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, including 2 Penn Staters. And I just want to put it into perspective because I had somebody and they were serious and they're kind of a casual fan, but they're like, was that disappointing? Penn State only had 2 wrestlers on the Olympics. Again, so we're clear, there are 6 spots on the Olympic roster. It is hard for any one school to have an alumnus on it. Penn State having 2. Penn State's the only school that has 2, right? There were 5 Big Ten alums in that on that Team USA starting roster, and then 1 from Cornell and Kyle Dake. But so Zane Rutherford and Aaron Brooks, that's a big deal. And no, that is not disappointing. Having 2 from your school on a 6-man roster, you are making up 33% of the U.S. roster. That is very significant. So, you know, the depth in the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club is obviously phenomenal. The depth on Team USA is, I think, as good as we've ever seen it. And I think the U.S. is primed to have, again, just an outstanding showing in Paris this summer. Obviously, you got to go out and do it, and we'll see how it plays out. But I think, presuming Spencer Lee and Zane Rutherford, and I am presuming they will qualify those weights for the Olympics, I think the U.S. could very well come home with 6 medalists and get at least 2 or 3 gold in there. Aaron Brooks and David Taylor, it is that match or those 2 matches, to me, embody the, I guess, the greatness of the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, but also the difficulty of the situation that they are in, where, again, you have 2 guys that anybody who knows them, and it was much the same thing with Nick Lee and Zane Rutherford. And I thought the scramble that those 2 had in the first period of their first bout was that is as good a wrestling as you're going to see anywhere ever. It was about 30 seconds of shot, reshot, in deep, countering. That was, again, as good of an exchange as I think we saw all weekend and as you'll ever see in the sport. But, you know, I've gotten to know the families, the wrestlers a little bit, and there's nothing there to not like about any of them. And there's nothing that any of them have done where like, well, yeah, you know, that guy probably didn't deserve it anyway because he took a day off. Nope. They all 4 of them bring the same attitude, bring the same enthusiasm, bring the same respect, and are exactly the people that you want representing your family, your team, your organization. And it is just really, really tough when you have a situation where, you know, David wanted to close out his career with that 2nd Olympic gold. And here's Aaron Brooks, and, you know, his time is now. And he put together a phenomenal weekend and 2 really great matches against David Taylor, where he just would not give up a takedown to Taylor.
That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate everyone checking out this episode. Remember to like and share it with friends and family. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. If you're not already, become an everydayer and subscribe to the show. You can keep up with Jeff outside of wrestling every morning, every weekday, 8 to 10 a.m. on Fox Sports 98.7 in-state college, 987thefox.com if you want to stream it if you are outside of the area. Jeff, thanks again for the time. I really appreciate, you know, catching up on where Penn State wrestling is in the off season, but still a lot of exciting things to talk about, even though they are not right now in the middle of collegiate competition.